So hello and good morning to everyone, and welcome to our Time Machine 2020 conference session 2. We will today hear more about the local time machine projects and initiatives. Today you will also have, for the first time, the possibility to upload a project, a time machine project. We hope you enjoyed the show. I would like to announce some basic rules. We will have two speakers today. That's Julia Noordegraaf and Isabella di Lenardo. You might know them already from the past webinar from mid of October. And we will, as a technicality, we will promote all the attendees that are streaming in already, promote them to participants so that you can also be a little more interactive and use also the chat to notify us on anything. And yeah, the question and answer option is also available. So if you have any questions coming up during the presentations, better maybe prompt them in the a question and answer section, and we can answer them at any point suitable during the session. Okay. So I think that's, and as you're all participants, it would be nice if you're not presenting anything, if you turn off your microphone and your video. Okay, so that's all from my side. I give the floor to Isabella or Julia, whoever wants to start. Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Julia. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here for this session on local time machines. Oh, voila. Today we present you the new logic and the new interface for uploading projects. There are many things to discuss and many aspects to see together. A big thanks to Daniel Yeller for all this work of development. He is our cornerstone. And so I'll present this new interface. Then there's, at the end of my presentation, I'll invite you to submit your project or projects. And this way we can test together if this new platform it's a good point of starting. Then there will be also three very interesting spotlight on ongoing projects in Rome, Antwerp, and Nicosia. And then you'll invite to vote in a poll concerning the new themes for the Time Machine Academies. So we have already, as Caroline said, we have already provided some elements of general explanation of the logic of the new interface during the webinar on 12th October. If you have any doubts, I invite you to watch this webinar. Of course, you can also ask questions during this live workshop or after contact me or contact Caroline directly. Just to take up the general elements, which have been partially summarized also in the RFC 5. The new web environment for projects is important for the Time Machine organization for many reasons. First, creating a clear map of all the ongoing projects, we need to understand which projects are active or relevant with the Time Machine objective and which are in the same area of coverage. For example, how many projects we have in cities like Paris or Amsterdam or others. Then we need to create a project onboarding procedure allowing to structure some fundamental information in a database. This responds to a need of a granular mapping of them. And then it's important to bring out individuality and projects that are already produced, virtuous results, and are currently the most active, because not all projects are the same. And it's in everyone's interest to progress in the digital transition thanks to methods and approaches that are the most virtuous or the most avant-garde. So the new interface answers exactly to these requirements in an easy way, that it means allowing the creation of consortia that mix institutions from different geographic areas to study other locations. So we need to have these collaborative teams active in all these cities in Europe, making sure that all participants in a local time machine can easily be part of the time machine organization, because today the situation is not completely clear. There's some institution that it's already part of some consortium, but not part of or member of the time machine organization. So we need to be more flat in this respect, trying to have on board all these institutions that potentially can collaborate and integrate different aspects of development of the time machine organization. Just a quick reminder on the schema of the time machine infrastructure development. So the project is the core of our activity. It's uploaded through the interface in the project repository. The project study, of course, sources in a different ways, many sources and different, and extracts the data. This is a kind of standard way for developing projects. But at the same time, there can also be projects that produce operators and apps. The operators and apps are in detail the subject of RFCs and in discussion in the Time Machine Academies. So the operators are, for instance, tools for segmenting, authorizing, extracting, and modeling information. Apps are more structured interfaces that concretely allow the development of the 4D map. The data sets produced by projects are simply shared through the project interface and will be eventually integrated in the data graph following specific RFCs for according them to common and shared standards. So it's important to understand that when you potentially share your data set of your project in the project interface, this data set doesn't concur now for be uploading in the data graph directly, but there's a long process of discussion and of elaboration of common standard and definition that we have to do in the request for comments for harmonize all this data in a common and shared data graph. There's essentially, so as Julia said yesterday in the plan activities, there's essentially two distinguished phases of development. The first one in which we develop the project environment and the local time machine web space. So we are today at this starting point of this concerning this first phase. And so we are here in this part of the shim. So the project is uploaded in the project repository. At the same time, the project is studying sources or others, and potentially has data to share in the data repository. Then there's the second phase, starting next year, in which we plan to develop the two fundamental other parts of the time machine scheme. We remind you that the more we are able to benefit of your collaboration and further membership, the more these factors will be developed quickly and comprehensively, and more all time machine institutions will benefit. So it's really, really important to have you on board for developing at the best the app repository and the code library environment. In the second phase, we are here. We see the operators that are specific tools, codes that are useful for some specific needs. For example, tools for realigning historical maps or historical cadasters on the current plan, or automatically extracting geometry from a map, or tools of character recognition or image segmentation and so on. So they are, we can also say that they are codes for one part of the works of the work on sources. Then apps that are, for example, tools for annotating historical documents or API. Many of us in the consortium, like academies or companies, as we said, we see yesterday, develop or are developing this type of code differently. The idea is to make them available in different forms, informing everyone of mutual progress and helping patrimonial actors to develop specific solutions. There's a long, slow track development that we have to do in parallel that corresponds to a modular writing through the RFCs of the components of the data graph, the code library, and the 4D map. So the RFCs are a way in which we can build all these different bricks of elements that has to plan for producing the data graph, the code library, and the 4D map. And this is the final part of the shim that we can understand that it's not easy to build, of course, but it's a long process of discussion and harmonization and definition of new ways to do it. Now we take a look to the local time machines environment. So what is a local time machine? Local time machine, it's a zone of coverage. It's a geographical entity specific through, described through the geonames entities, in which there are different projects that have other names. For example, in the Paris time machine, you see here the image of Paris. Paris is the zone of coverage, but there are several projects which are not called Paris time machine, but each with its name. So each one has his own name. That is already the case, and with its own coordination and funding. The goal is to get out the idea of the locality and instead open collaborations with mixed teams having advanced technologies in various fields. A paradigmatic case, for instance, are archaeological sites, which are studied by different teams from all over the world. Another aspect to include all active projects in the same area, which is not the case today. All projects must be represented, even those that are not brought directly by the consortium or consortia already created. So we spoke during the last webinar also about this more horizontal coordination that we need, because we'll need to have multiple projects with different leads. And this means that common coordination is encouraged, of course, but is not mandatory. Now, let's take a look to the interface that you can test. First, of course, you can enter the title of your project. In this case, I tested with a real project that we have underway in Lausanne about the automatic extraction of all names from urban censuses over a century. The project name, as you can see, not contain time machine, but must represent a specific title. In the zone of coverage of Lausanne, there will be different projects like names of Lausanne in this case, or I don't know, French cadasters in Lausanne project, or extracting directories in Lausanne, and so on. So they will not be called time machine. You can add the logo and the lead partner that must be a member of the Time Machine organization. There is, of course, also the possibility of adding other partners, part of the project, even if they are not already members of the Time Machine organization. Now the place. So we create a specific way to try to include all possible cases. The selection of places is made on the basis of geonames entities. A simple case, one place is Lausanne. I select it, I pick it in my list. A more complicated case, a project that studies 2 or more cities, like our friends in Barcelona, that would like to study in a project, in particular, the Kingdom of Aragon, for example. So we can select Barcelona and Naples at the same time. And I was wondering about, for example, other projects like the Camino de Santiago, which considers many cities, or projects that, for example, study the circulation of people or goods or other things in different periods. You can also enter the period covered, and you have a big selection of course, of possibility. So you can add as many places as you like. You can also add more complex entities, such as regions or countries. Then the case in which an institution wants to add a project, okay, but the project does not concern an analysis of a place or a cities or region specifically, but, for example, it concerns only the digitization of a collection of specific institutions. Like, for example, our colleague Juha Henriksson from the Music Archive Institute in Finland. So in this case, you can select the city where the institution is located. We have also several cases about regions, for example, Catalonia Time Machine. So in this case, we select Catalonia as regions, or for example, Lower Austria, or potentially other regional entities. You can, of course, also add other type of geographical entities that are not cities, like, for example, archaeological sites, and you can select them as you want. Then, once you submit the project, with this first informations, you will receive a confirmation email. And once this first submission has been approved, the project will appear in the local Time Machine projects page that you see here, where through the map, you can navigate and see all projects active in a specific zone of coverage. And you can also pick your project in particular. Here you can see only what I inserted before. Okay, you can also click on your project specifically, and you go in the page of your project and you can edit it and modify information. You can also insert a data set, for example. I just remind, because this data that you share in this interface, they are not the data that will be shared to the data graph. Okay, so we do this distinction. And you can also insert, for example, GitHub link or the nodal links or other links that point to other online datasets. There is obviously a specific field for any licenses on the datasets you wish to share. This is also in development, so we think to have covered more or less all the useful cases, but please let us know if it's really the case. So if we have already all the licenses available for describing your dataset, or we have to add more. Okay, so before moving on the testing phase of this interface, on the other part of this morning, I would just like to say something about the Time Machine Academies that anticipates the survey that you will do next. Because in accompaniment to a classic development from the point of view of technological improvement through the RFCs, for example, there is also the need to create a living community. First of all, by highlighting the most brilliant and advanced research on an international scale, and not only following traditional academic channels. Then it's important to create a discussion communities or some specific issue on some specific issues connecting public actors, institutions, the world of research and the private sector, also for sharing information. It's also essential to bridge the difference in terms of knowledge, technologies and development, and helping cultural institutions that don't have technology goals in their missions to benefit from it. So the Time Machine Academies are moments that follow a precise calendar and that fit into 6 fundamental themes. We have proposed this, but we invite you to suggest others, of course. First, practical and theoretical academies on coding, essentially about different aspects that could be, I don't know, the 2D, 3D, extracting information, data modeling, or others. Then software solution in use or in development, problems on how build the infrastructure or concern computing and storage capacity. Pipeline and methods for digitizing, and funding opportunities. This is typically an academy that can become periodic and in which project scouting colleagues with Schumann also can coordinate. And then the community service. So the community service is interesting because there's a situation in which, for example, an institution or more institutions has a concrete problem. And the discussion we launch the discussion, and the discussion is animated in order to find together solution strategies. Okay, so I invite you to test the platform. Maybe I can share also my screen just to show you where it is in the website. And then at the same time, we'll launch the presentation, and we'll come back for question and answers just after. Okay, so we are here in the home page of the website. This the uploading platform is in the Building a Time Machine, in which you find also the request for comments, local time machine section, project scouting service, because of course all these three parts concur for the development of the local time machines. And then there I propose LTM projects, local time machine projects. Okay. This is the first page of onboarding procedure, in which you have to insert the title. For example, I try to do real time with you. Okay, you have to add your data concerning your name, family name, email address. Okay. The period covered by the project, in this case, it concerns precise year, so I select this year, but could be, of course, a range between one and another year. And then you can add a place. So for my project, it's not difficult, because I can enter Lausanne without difficulties. But if it's the case, you can add more places, just adding more rows, or pick different entities, selecting by GeoNames search engine. Okay. Then the project duration. So this project started this year, and I hope that will be developed in the next one. Lead partner. Okay, so I add the lead partner has to be already member in the Time Machine organization. So I pick the EPFL, Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. We can add some associated if I want, for example, Archives de la Ville de Lausanne. No results found, because they I'm sorry, I'm the wrong I'm the wrong field. Is that so? There's two other fields. One for the associated partners, that they need to be members of the Time Machine, and the other for they don't need to be members. Okay, Archives de la Ville de Lausanne. Okay, right up. And if this project has been funded from Europe or a national funding or other bodies, I don't know what, you can add potentially all this information, adding the logo, a small text, potentially the name of these funding institutions, and the URL. Then the field of description, that then you can eventually updating in your editing in your page when you are in the edit way. For example, the French cadastre is a project on the digitization and automatic extraction of features from okay. project logo, and an external URL. And then you submit the proposal. So in this case, there's no okay. Fine. Up, we submit the proposal. Normally, there's a very very small intermediary time in which you receive a mail for the confirmation, and once that the mail is okay, you can click on the link that you find in the email text, and you can go in your project page for editing it or for other types of activities, just add an event or a conference, or for example, uploading a data set, or other for adding for more refined information in this dedicated page. Okay, so try to do it. Try to do it, please. And I give the floor to Julia for introducing the presentation of the spotlight. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Isabella. I'm just checking our schedule. So I think we are first, before the spotlights, we are actually also opening the floor to questions and answers about this platform, because the idea actually is that you immediately test it and see if it works, and if you in the process have specific questions. So I'm following more or less the Q&A. So there are some questions we cannot immediately answer, such as the one about the Topotheek projects, how to register. So those are things we have to, I think, discuss later.
It's also possible to ask here directly.
The process is as follows. You can enter a project, you can register, propose a project for registration. That's what you're actually doing when you're filling out the form. And then it is reviewed by the local time machine management team. And then in case we have any questions about the project and whether it fits or not, then we will contact you. And if it's green lighted, then we will just put it on the website immediately.
No, I mean here now, in this, I would like to ask to Isabella something directly.
Oh yes, please ask your question. Yes, go ahead.
Because years ago I attended to this Ramon Llull conferences or exhibitions which ended in Art Lab. Art Lab exposed them. And I don't know if it's possible to access them, because I try to bring soon a project onto this local time machine things from Saxonia, and I would like to connect it to the collections which has been displayed in Art Lab. And if this is possible, to relate them somehow.
Okay, I'm not sure to have well understood. So you did an exhibition some years ago in Lausanne. Is that no?
No, I was a curator for some short time at the ZKM. I observed all these exhibitions in Barcelona. At ZKM. In Art Lab, I haven't been there, but I know that Art Lab added some, for me, interesting things from medicine, medical resources. And I would like to see if it's possible to join this material with a project starting soon in Germany, in Saxonia. If this is possible, that I just added here to be discussed, if this combination is possible.
I think yes, yeah, it's possible. It's enough to fill the form about all this with all this information, and then yeah, you have just to select the correct zone of coverage of your projects. In this case, for example, potentially Saxonia. If there's these geographic entities in the database, and then yes, it's okay. You can do
because it's in planning. They are now having a budget from Europe, but it's still in planning, so it's not ready.
Can we keep it short? And I mean,
I try. Yes, I try
have
the best.
A lot of questions, but what became clear in the presentation also, you have the ability to add links. So I think that's a way to link to the data that you are describing by including the URLs. And if there's not enough room in the form, you can also use the description part and add additional links there. They also will appear as links on the website. So I think you can shape it through this description field. You can shape it in the way you like with reference to the sources. But if there are more detailed questions, maybe you can write to us separately, because I think we have more time to go into it. Yeah,
Julia, there's a general question, I think, which is also worth answering. It's about whether past projects can be documented in the interface.
Yes. Okay, Isabella.
Yeah, they do. Of course. Yeah. No, it's important. At the opposite, it's absolutely important to know what is the state of the art of, because there are many projects. For example, things to Rome. How many 3D there's potentially there are about the cities, the reconstruction of the city through time. So it's the key question is to have the past projects, the ongoing projects, and then for the future, so we have just to wait that we'll have more and more projects. But of course, it's important to have the past project on board. It's true also that at the same time, the way for uploading data is not completely finished, so we have to do some more improvement, because as you have seen in my talk, for example, the API space, so the way for uploading API, for example, is not still there. So we have to improve also this part. And in this way, for example, if there's an institution that has a big collection already digitized and that potentially wants to share, it can do it, but through the API that is not a service already available, unfortunately. So we still have some months of development for improving this part.
Okay, I also see a question on the geographical, how to deal with multiple geographical entities. Javier asks, if the project involves several locations, is it advisable to include them all plus the regional geo entity? Can you clarify?
Yeah, but the general way is just to see if these geo entities that you want to consider is in the geo names database. This is the first thing that you have to check. And then if for X reasons that I don't know is not in this database, of course, you can contact us and we try to understand what's the problem, what is your particular case, how we can upload specifically information about it.
Okay, I hope that answers your question. Kevin has reminded us to use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen rather than the chat, because the chat is it's harder for us to link the answers to the questions posed. So can we switch to using the Q&A for the questions? But I see the geo question has been clarified. let's see, there's another question about the schedule of today's meeting. So we are currently in the Q&A for the project registration. The idea is also that we use this time for you, for those of you who have projects, to immediately now try to register them. Again, when a project is approved, you will get a link, so you can always make changes later if it's not fully complete with the description or the link to the data. But in case you want to, you can definitely experiment with it, and we will answer any questions you have in the process. I don't see any new questions popping up. Then maybe briefly, while you are experimenting and thinking about this, I would like to briefly give the floor to Ilaria Mancini, who has joined us today through my link. So she's now, I think, visible as Julia Noordegraaf. There you are, Ilaria. So Ilaria is our new local time machine manager, who will start working on January 1st together mostly with Isabella, but also with me in Amsterdam for the Amsterdam time machine. So it's a joint position, but the majority of the work will be for the time machine project. So Caroline, can we briefly have Ilaria up on the screen to introduce herself to the community? I think you have the stage now. Yeah, there you are.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Yeah, my name is Ilaria Mancini. I am Italian, but I have been living for a few years in the Netherlands now. And my background is actually as an archaeologist. And but over the past few years, I've also started to work as a project manager in the cultural field, a bit more at large. So I think that I can really contribute to this whole project with this sort of intersection of being a bit of a researcher myself and also having some experience on how to manage a complex and multilateral partnership project. So I am really excited to be here today, and I can't wait to, well, get to meet all of you in separate conversations for sure, starting from January onwards. I think this is it for me now.
Okay, thank you very much. And we're very glad that you're joining us while you haven't even started yet and finishing your job.
My pleasure.
The Prince Claus Fund. So thank you very much. I think that in the meantime, I want to highlight one question by Slava, which has been answered actually, but I think it's good that if you want to link to data that is in other repositories, then it is better to add a link to that repository in your project registration, especially of course if the data is very big. Yeah, so I hope I summarized that correctly. Any other questions from audience members at this point? I see compliments about the workflow. Yes, and I haven't finished answering the question about the program of today, I'm sorry. So we're now in this session where we test this, and this will be followed by short presentations of 3 local time machines from Rome, Antwerp and Nicosia. And after that, the last half hour or so, we will talk to you, we will poll you about the topics for our planned Time Machine Academy sessions. So we want to discuss with you a little bit on what are the topics we should program for the Time Machine Academy sessions that we will organize next year. So that is the last part. So yeah, once we complete this session on project registration, we go to half an hour on the local time machines with Q&A after, and then 20 minutes to half an hour on the topics of the next Time Machine Academy sessions. There's also a reminder by Frédéric on the request for comments. That was a session yesterday afternoon. It's good to point out that there is a request for comments written on the organization of the local time machine, so including this whole project registration process and other things. So I think it's good if we paste the link again. So there is the link, Frédéric has shared the link for joining in any way. So this can be as a writer of requests for comments, as an editor or member of the editorial board, or thinking along with what RFCs we should have, so curating the agenda. So please, if you want to have a say in that, please look at this website and consider joining. Good. No other pressing issues, apparently. I'm very curious to see what has come up in the project registration. Our ambition was to have one project at least for each local time machine. So let's consider that today's challenge to make that possible. And let me see, I don't see any. Yeah, so one final call, no more further questions. Then by miracle, we're ahead of schedule. Well done, Isabella. So then we now move on to the presentations of the local time machine representatives. As an introduction, I also want to mention there are a lot of, yesterday we realized there are lots of, there's a big need also for the sharing of progress and ideas. So I hope the new local time machine academy sessions will provide us with a platform for more dialogue and communication, which of course in this online universe is a bit more complicated. But we will think of ways to create room for this sharing of ongoing work for all the time machine, local time machine projects. Okay, but it's my great pleasure now. We move to Rome, to Thomas Hensley, who is head of digital at the Institute for History and Theory of Architecture, and director of the Swiss Art Research Infrastructure, SARI, and to Martin Raspe, who is digital scientist at the Bibliotheca Hertziana at Max Planck Institute für Kunstgeschichte in Rome. Martin, do I give you the floor?
Yes, I'm ready. Hello. Hello, everybody. I share my screen now, and I hope this will work.
Yes.
Do you see?
We see your screen. It's empty. Is that correct?
Do you see my first slide here?
Yes, there it is.
About the Rome time machine.
Yeah, it's not fully visible.
I think it's not for. Yeah, I think it's a technical problem with Zoom. So I think this should be the first screen. So we would like to propose a Rome time machine because we have seen that there isn't one, and we think there should be one because Rome is a time machine already in itself, and Rome as a historical and cultural center in Europe has been responsible even for time itself, as it has twice added to our calendars. We have the Julian calendar and the Gregorian calendar, both were introduced in Rome. So what we have in Rome to produce a local time machine, we are an institute that is concerned with research on art history of Rome, and I just want to briefly present to you the assets that we can contribute. First of all, our project would be connecting and exploring data about Rome in space and time. And we have already a lot of digital resources available that could enter this broader project. We have digitized early modern maps with visual annotations already sometimes, and with metadata and georeferences. So we are very much into these historic maps of Rome and other cities, Naples, for example. We have a lot of early modern guidebooks, so travel guides for Rome, and other rare books, about 15,000 rare books. Some of them are already digitized. We have databases for 18th century architectural drawings, mainly Italy and Rome, and of paintings around 1600 in our Zuccaro database. And in that same database, we have a huge amount of data about foreign artists in the 19th century. All of these, of course, came to Rome to study classic art. And in a quite related field, we have this database of analysis, technological analysis of paintings of the age of Caravaggio. So this is a specialized database about which came about through restorations, so technical analysis of paintings. So this is a huge array of things. And we are currently working to add more resources. We are, in the next years, we will digitize our whole photo collection, which at the moment consists of about 870,000 photographs, of which 40% are already catalogued. We are part of an interinstitutional linked open data project for photo collection catalogs, which is called Pharos, together with around 10 or 15 partners. We are also part of an library catalog linked open data consortium, which is called the Pubicat, the catalog of Kunstbibliotheken, of art libraries. We plan to do an amount of about 80,000 volumes of scholarly publications on Rome of the last like 100 years. And this is also meant to be exploited for data mining. And we have want to have our rare books collection also available with OCR text, which will be transcribed through the software Transcribus, which is very capable of doing high quality OCR texts of books, of rare books. The software and technological solution we can offer is we already have a graph database system on a lot of data, which is called Zuccaro, which contains the things that I described before, but also other data, which is based on an event relationship data model, so which everybody's talking about at the moment. And we also have already a viewing environment for these historical maps and for our rare books. We could contribute that. And for the future, we plan to do cross-referencing between our photo collection and the library assets, so that you can go from books to photos and vice versa, that we create a knowledge graph for all this, so that books, photographs, and the research data are combined in a single knowledge graph of our institute, which concerns mainly Rome, but then also Italy. We are currently working on IIIF-based tools for annotating texts. So, for example, the rare books, but also for single images, and of course, for our historic maps section, and also for cross-referencing between digital publications and the material that they refer to. And last but not least, we want, of course, to not only present this data as a huge pool of data, but we also want to do research on this. So we want to add visualization layers, which can help us analyze these data. And all these solutions are, of course, open for collaboration, open source, and open access. And we invite partners to collaborate on this proposed Rome time machine, which we think should exist. Thank you very much. So I pass on. I stop sharing my slide if I can manage to, and pass over to Thomas Hensley. Thank you.
Thank you. And I forgot to say that please pose any questions for the speakers in the Q&A, or if you can't use the Q&A, in the chat. So we will, after all the presentations are done, we will take questions. And I'm here to manage time, but so far we're doing great. So please go ahead.
Well, okay, so thank you very much. I assume you can hear me and see my screen. Thank you very much for the possibility to kind of pop in here and present what we are doing in Zurich, Switzerland at the Swiss Art Research Infrastructure. The Swiss Art Research Infrastructure itself is part of the national roadmap of research infrastructure of national relevance, which has been launched by the Swiss State Secretariat for Education, Research and Innovation a few years ago. And the infrastructure is being hosted and funded by the University of Zurich. It's connected, obviously, since we are mainly in art history and architectural history, it's connected with several partner institutions and initiatives. First of all, with the Digital Society Initiative, DSI, at the University of Zurich, and the Digital Visual Studies at the University of Zurich, which itself is also co-founded or founded mainly by the Max Planck Institute and connected to the Bibliotheca Hertziana. What we do is run in cooperation with the core partners ETH Zurich, that's mainly the Goethe Institute, and the Swiss Institute for Art Research, SIGISEA in Zurich. And we are linked also with a lot of communities in the cultural heritage related to data standardization, data harmonization, and also data modeling. That includes linked art, the CDOC CRM community, where we are in the special interest group, obviously, and our Cord Age consortium for open research data in the humanities. And strong link is obviously, I mentioned that already, the link, the partnership with the Bibliotheca Hertziana in Rome. That's just for the institutional overview. We plan to offer an open hour next week. It will be on Tuesday, December 8th at 11 a.m. Zurich time. I just posted here a link to a Zoom meeting. If you're interested to have a closer look what we do, please jump in, join us, throw a question at us, and obviously approach us if you think you can use our technology. Now, to go a little bit more in the work that we actually do, the key mission of SARI is to make pivotal research data and collection data available online based on open standards. This includes pipelines for linked data integration and semantification based mainly on the CDOC CRM standard and technology. That includes linked open data-based enrichment of data sets, their publication and exploration, obviously, but it also includes the development of lexical resources, mainly vocabularies and translations. We are working with several institutions on this field, also with the Getty Institute. And we, of course, do address pivotal issues such as accessibility, verifiability, and multilinguality of data, including, obviously, reusability of research data, which is one of the key requirements we are being faced with by the national funding agencies. We work mainly with the MetaFax open source platform, but obviously we develop an entire stack of technology that we apply to it. Open standards belong to that, such as IIIF and so on. What we actually can offer to the time machine projects and we are happy to offer and very open to do so, is joint development and discussion of solutions in the area of linked data, especially when it comes to geospatial visualization of art, historical data and timelines, and obviously also sharing of resources and technological solutions for the cultural heritage data at large. In order to give you an idea of one of the projects that we are in, I would like to present one major project we are currently dealing with. It's called Bilder der Schweiz Online. If I would like to translate that, it would be images in all kinds of the meaning, images of the Switzerland online. It presents historical image data on Switzerland based on their geolocation. It has been founded by a private foundation, Stiftung Familie Fehlmann, we are mainly making available assets from the Zentralbibliothek Zürich and the Swiss National Library. This covers prints and photos from the 19th to the mid-20th century in Switzerland that do cover actually Swiss topography. That includes also the so-called Schweizer Kleinmeister. You see an example on the right side on the screen actually, the famous Rheinfall, which has been obviously subject to numerous travels and artworks and prints. And what we include there are enhanced temporal and geographical data. What we do from SARI for this project is the conceptual modeling, processing, and converging of data sets from these partner institutions. We do the integration of reference data sets such as the GND, the EULA, the AIT, Wikidata, etc. And we do especially the semantic enrichment and visualization of topographical data, currently coming mainly from Swiss Topographical Institute in Bern, and we make that available for research and teaching. The research goals that we pursue in this project is to use geo-coordinates to explore social, infrastructural, but also geographical contexts in this particular historical period. We want to investigate and to visualize users' travel through the space and time on a map to understand how Switzerland and its depiction have changed and evolved over time. What you see on the right side, bottom right of the presentation, is a short overview how we deal with the data. So we have data from various similar but actually technically quite differing sources that we need to streamline both for the image data based on IIIF, but also for the metadata and the research content that we get from these library catalogs, and then pre-processing, processing it, and actually exposing it as a Sparkle endpoint, but also as a website for visualization that can be used for additional research and annotation and so on. The project has just started this year. It's coordinated by our colleague Stephanie Sanchi, which is also listening and being present in the background here. The IIIF part is being maintained by Julien Remy, which is also present in this call. And we have a huge team, which some of them might also be present. I'm not entirely sure who is attending today, but we will definitely be happy to present this in detail and to have all technical people and scholarly people present next Tuesday in our presentation. I just switch back to the meeting coordinate. It will be on Tuesday, December 8th, starting 11 a.m. via Zoom. And I will just post the link to the Zoom meeting afterwards in our chat. So that's what we do from here. It's obviously linked closely to the Bibliotheca Hertziana, to a lot of other partners, and we'll be happy to join activities in the Time Machine organization. Also when it comes to RFCs, to exposing standardized models for modeling content in RDF and CDOC-CRM. Some of you might have noticed that we have published some of them quite a lot extensively, that have been reused by the FAROS consortium and other partners. So we'll definitely be happy to share our knowledge and technology with you.
Wonderful.
That was it.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you so much for both of you, Martin, Thomas, for this wonderful presentation. Stephanie has already shared the link for the session next week. And great to see this project outline and also the spirit of sharing your work. That's really much appreciated. So we look forward to the collaboration. Okay.
Julia, just a quick thing. So if I can add, so for example, the case of Rome is a very interesting case. Just to summarize for all of us, in the sense that you have, for example, in this case, a consortium with many entities, because there's the ETH of Zurich, the Swiss Art Research Infrastructure in Switzerland, the Artiana Library. So it's they have typically a comprehensive approach to specific case, right? Because there's a lot of sub-projects in these big projects. And so for what we try to do is that for the platform, there's not problem to try to cut, for example, all these projects in sub-projects, because there's the project on Zucchero frescoes, for example, the project on prosopography, on Rome's, and so on. So it's probably already the case, because you approach all this matter in from different angles and with different approaches, and you can cut all these elements, just try to see them separately, and then you can upload all that in the platform in a separated way. This is exactly one example, very interesting, for showing how you can improve the platforms, uploading not one, but several projects that potentially have the same coordination or not, the same actors involved or not, and in this way you can of course improve the zone of coverage. You can of course study specific questions and not others, like I don't know what, the 3D or archaeological 3D and so on.
Yes, good point. So I will also take home from this that we behind the scenes have to give some guidelines on what defines a project. Where are the boundaries of a project, right? So we will make this very clear, but for now, feel free to really submit sub-projects and the data related to it for specific locations, and the location is what binds them together. And then, yeah, I think that's a good point.
Can I add a remark from Zurich?
Yes, Thomas, please.
I think Isabella made an extremely good point. I think one of the key issues is to understand who does what in what way, and how data, which I still consider the gold of the of what we do and what everybody else wants to consume. The data are the gold. So I think it's extremely important to have this coordination and this overview over the data. And what we, for instance, did with our standard models, we are coming up with a new, they have been published, Nicola Carboni and George Brusacker were in charge. They have been published, but we realized that we need to redo it and to add an additional layer to it, so to understand which project actually uses which standardized data models for CDOC CRM. And this turns out to be extremely helpful, so I understand how my data look like, who else can achieve what with similar data, and what tools they actually use. And that needs to be extremely fine granular, and it's tedious work, but we are almost finished to republish them so that we can see which project uses which one. And I think that what Isabella was mentioning goes into the very same direction, that we have a granular overview of who does what and with which tools. And I think that will be extremely helpful.
Yeah, and what's really nice about this registration of the project, that you can list all the partners that are involved. So you can also immediately tie it into the groups working on it. So, okay, I'm gonna be strict timekeeper. So we're gonna continue with our local time machine presentations. And then during the Q&A, we can come back to some of the questions because there are more coming up. So we have room for that after the two next presentations. And next up, we move from Rome to Antwerp, to Jason Jongepier, who's affiliated with the University of Antwerp as head of the project Digimaps. Jason, the floor is yours.
Okay.
And I will be warning you towards the end of your 10 minutes.
Okay, that's fine. I aimed for 8 minutes, so we should be fine with this.
Great.
I will share my screen. Voila. So this should be fine for all, I guess. And yeah, we start with this update on the time machine of Antwerp. I thought to grasp this opportunity to elaborate a bit more on what was said yesterday in 1 minute. Now we have a bit more time, so I won't present the entire Antwerp time machine again, but I will update you on some recent developments. But I will remind you of what we are doing. This is the core of our Antwerp time machine, a series of GIS layers made from historical maps and lots of written sources on the inhabitants of Antwerp, going back to 1584. So you see kind of a schematic presentation of all these layers, thousands and thousands and thousands of houses or households with all the information on the inhabitants for the time period stored in the attribute tables of these layers. And that kind of presents the base of our bigger project that also tries to include right now other sources like photographs, magic lantern slides, newspapers, more census data, other maps to the spatial infrastructure that forms the backbone of the Antwerp time machine. So that's the time machine in short. I promise you an update in 4 points. After I will just show our future vision, which I think we share with you, is kind of creating a 3D representation of the past, enriched with all the data that is to be found in historical documents. And now we go to the update in 4 points. The first point is our network. Well, mainly due to the Antwerp time due to the larger time machine movement, we got in touch really more closely with our other academic research groups, that some of which I didn't even hear about before we started the project. But right now we are working together with other research groups which supply us with a lot of knowledge on, for instance, AR, VR experiments, etc. Just to show you the academic consortium. I see a lot of chat things coming in, but I guess we're still on our way with the presentation.
Great, Jason. Please go ahead. I'm questions for the Q&A afterwards.
Okay, perfect. But the main thing, the most recent development in our network is actually the teaming up with the Belgian State Archives, and that's in the light of the Digimaps project, which I will be carrying out the following 10 years, where we try to extract data from maps, and we try, just to keep it simple, connect other sources to the maps. So actually we team up with the State Archives. They have about 300,000 digitized historical maps that we can use. And they also cover Antwerp. Of course, this is a Belgian project, but it includes Antwerp just as well. And we have kind of an overall goal. This is quite a heavy slide. It might take a second to load. We have this future vision. Of extracting the toponyms from the maps and using these toponyms, extracting them, but also transcribing them, putting them in kind of transcribers for maps, and aiming to use these toponyms as the base point to include other data to the information that is located on these maps. So the toponyms are used to store data from the written sources to these maps. Of course, we already do this kind of manually. The larger goal for the following 10 years is to explore how we can facilitate this on a more automated way. And we are looking, of course, I cannot do this alone. We are looking for synergies to go on with this project, having the extremely rich database of the Belgian States Archives. That's on network. I will proceed because the 8 minutes will already be pretty tough to meet. Second part, research, new projects. We are launching it, well, the coming weeks. That is actually the clustering and geolocalization of hundreds of thousands of photos in the DAMS database for Antwerp, for which we were using the Pixplot application made by Yale to cluster these images towards well, towards images that concern buildings in Antwerp, and then we try to geolocalize them by okay, something not from me pops up here, and we try to geolocalize them according to the test database that we already have within the Antwerp time machine of about 1,000 pictures. So we compare and geolocate these. Third point is our public working, and that's well, now we have our smartphone application up and running. I will show you a short movie clip of that. Okay, so a very short clip of the application. It's in Dutch because we try to reach the local inhabitants in the first place. So they might not like, well, there's well, not everybody is as good as in English or as familiar with it as we want to. So we chose to do it in Dutch. But that's the application. We aim to, well, enlarge it to more layers and more data from Antwerp. We have, as you saw, quite a lot to put in this kind of systems. And then last part, we also try to aim our project to more the policy level, not only to the academic or public sector, but a bit more to policy. And we are teaming up with the province of Antwerp in a project Digital Heritage for Smart Regions. I won't go to all the bullet points, but right now we are testing well, the new technologies that emerge and that are open source and that are usable. Also for non-professionals, and we try to see what they can do for integrating the cultural heritage of cities, in this case a more rural setting, to use them as information sources for landscape or spatial planning or regional development. And well, I won't go into the details. We do that starting with GIS again, but moving towards other tools afterwards and putting an output in the form of kind of an interactive best practice module where you can see what your source is, what might be possible to do with it or not possible to do with it. We get stuck a lot to, and to provide kind of a basic guideline for these local policymakers to use tools on their historical local data. And that's what I wanted to tell you today. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Jason. I already see a wow for the smartphone app posted by Jim. And in the meantime, there's also lots of projects popping up on the Time Machine, local Time Machine project website. And of course, we're waiting for the Antwerp projects to appear there once Jason has his hands free.
Yeah. Historical is in there, but the rest will follow in the following days, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, I also have some homework myself. Very nice. Thank you very much. We'll provide room for questions after our last presentation. So we go to Nicosia, to George Artopoulos, who's assistant professor at the Cyprus Institute and a specialist on immersive and virtual environments, urban modeling and digital simulation for the study of built heritage. So we go in the third dimension, I guess, George.
Correct. Thank you, Julia. Good morning, everyone. Hi. Before I start, I would like to thank Isabella and yourself, Julia, for your kind invitation. My plan is today to share with you the progress of our work. Again, similarly to the previous cases, this is like a convergence of various smaller activities and projects over the years, which I think are heading towards the right direction. Let me share my screen. So I believe you're able to see the presenter's view, correct?
Yes, very well.
So you will allow me a couple of slides to say a few words about the history of the city, because I believe not everyone is familiar with Nicosia. So Nicosia is the last divided capital in Europe. It has a long history of more than 2,000 years, and the contemporary city grew out of the medieval walls of the historic core, which were built by Julius Savonian in the 16th century, following the canonical design rules at the time. The whole of the historic core of Nicosia is listed as a monument, together with its walls, which are the heritage of the city. Nicosia is the historic fabric of the city was formed during the Latin and Ottoman years. The remnants from these periods are still defining its urban landscape. Within the walls that you see on your screen, the cityscape contains a rich mosaic of building styles dating from the medieval, Ottoman, British, and modern periods. And this is exactly the historic environment visualized in the platform that I will be presenting today to you, which highlights key monuments and sites in the broader urban context. This platform was created to bring together a select number of monuments from both sides of the buffer zone. Mind you, this is a divided city, to achieve participation and engagement in the management of heritage and shared understanding of the history of the city as a whole in its totality. Despite of the status of the city as a monument, unfortunately, there are still many heritage buildings that are in urgent need for protection, preservation, renovation, and safeguarding. As you can see, these are the derelict buildings that fell apart last year due to prolonged heavy rain. Efforts in the Nicosia Master Plan, of course, the Bicommunal Committee on the Protection of the Heritage of the Historic City are very important, and specifically the work that they did for all the very rich heritage that is stuck in the buffer zone was recognized and awarded by Europa Nostra. The interactive platform that we built in the context of the permanent exhibition of the Municipal Museum relies on a large volume of 3D spatial data, which were generated through semi-supervised photogrammetric documentation pipeline and an accurate digital terrain model of the city, which was generated based on data provided by the Land Survey Department of the country. These spatial data are enriched with 2D and textual historical information and metadata. The process of creating the platform involved 3D data acquisition, processing, optimization, data storage, and management. With our interdisciplinary team of collaborators, including historians, architects, archaeologists, artists, computer scientists, 3D documentation experts, land surveyors, and engineers, experts on building information modeling and GIS, we intend to continue developing this further to expand and integrate new data sets to include historical buildings from the 19th century and examples of colonial architecture. And you will see now the kind of data sets that are already included and embedded in the platform. We are talking about 33 monuments, including the city cathedral, numerous churches, baths, the medieval gates of the walls, libraries, schools, public markets, city infrastructure, such as aqueducts, as well as prominent townhouses and mansions. The work that we are doing started a few years ago through a collaboration we had with the municipality of the city regarding the visualization in an interactive way of data regarding the future development of the city for new permits for new buildings, as well as the visualization of the current and planned infrastructure of the city, like pedestrian routes and plans for pedestrianization of the streets in the historic core, cycling paths, bus and tram services, etc. And this is the current state of development of the platform as it is installed at the museum in Nicosia. The users can observe the walls of the city during the Frankish period and read the relevant historical information, and also see the dots on the map which locate the monuments that are integrated in the platform. They can also find information about the Venetian walls and their bastions, and as they are standing today and closing the city. And after pressing the exploration button, the users can visit the city from a closer view. They can choose the desired century from the timeline at the bottom of the screen, and then click on the desired monument for a closer look. They can orbit around the monument and read historical information or see temporary, contemporary and old pictures and photographs, drawings regarding the selected monument. Now, since this information is, unfortunately, all the rich past of the city is not as well preserved and documented as in other Central European cities, we rely for the future development of the platform. We have decided to rely heavily on crowdsourcing and collecting information from the public. And in this regard, we have a strategic plan for collecting data that includes not only the data management side of the data, but also the interaction. And for this, we are developing an augmented reality application that would allow the users as they walk around the city to interact with information, digital assets that other users have already geolocated in space, leave comments and create groups around specific sites and neighborhoods in the city. And this we do in the context of diarrhea. We have already, in collaboration with the Deusto University in Bilbao in Spain, developed an app for crowdsourcing information, which is available on Google Play. And the data that we are collecting we are managing through an online content management system, which is called Clouder, and it's open source. As I said, part of this has been developed and was made possible with the support of Daria, and specifically the working group that I'm leading there, which focuses on digital methods and good practices for the study of heritage and urban change, about the impact of urban development on cultural heritage and the identity of the city. In parallel, also, we are working for the application of HBIM workflows and standards to our pipeline, and we do this in the context of another project, which is funded by structural funds, and it's about the development of a monitoring platform for the local authorities of cities to observe the development around historic clusters in the contemporary urban fabric, and in the context of which we have brought together experts and from different disciplines around the built heritage, from renovation and architectural conservation to BIM and remote sensing. We are also, to support all this wealth of data that we are collecting and we are trying to structure, we are developing processes and workflows like this process graph that you see on your screen that will help us to comply with HBIM ORDM standards and the conversion of and the linking of IFC standards to RDF, and which are, of course, in the backbone comply with all technologies. And we are exploring how we could develop this as a service in the future, since we are engaged in an H2020 project, which is called NEFOS, which is about the onboarding of services to EOSC, how we could, some of these effort could be eventually offered as a service on EOSC. And I should stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jorge. That was also a very rich presentation. And I think those workflow issues or diagrams and procedures and models are also very, for that, the request for common structure is also very useful to start collaboratively thinking about how to organize these workflows, and that we agree on how to do it so that there's more synergy. I think that's really what we can achieve in this context. I really look forward to see that progress. Okay, so thank you very much. I'd like to also invite back up the other speakers, Martin, Thomas, Jason, if you are there to take questions. I have already, I think, a general question from Erik Bullings from Belgium about having data and not knowing where to go with it because it's not yet part of a local time machine project. Isabella, maybe you can say a few words on question to answer that.
Yeah, of course. So there's no problem in the sense that so first we have to understand exactly what about these data are, and then we can eventually, if there's something theme active in a specific region or not, interesting because your data are could be inserted in another project approach based, I don't know what, on iconographic sources or 3D modeling or 2D modeling or modeling of simply about ontologies or order reflection. We can just put you in contact with these themes of research at European or international, of course, scale, or we can see how we can, for example, launch launch a project specifically in a zone of coverage or not, only related to your institution, about your data set.
Okay, there is still a question for Thomas and I think for Martin, but I don't see him anymore, so I'm afraid we cannot have him answer that question. I'm sorry, Claudia, for not having asked it before. I think there was some misunderstanding on the part of the speakers that they were expected to join the Q&A. Oh, they're on their way back, Stephanie says. Good, very nice. So let's see for them to come up. In the meantime, are there any other questions to any of the speakers? Or questions by the speakers themselves? Let me see. Caroline, I think the team for the Rome time machine needs to be upgraded to panelist again. So they're on their way.
Maybe Julia, just stressing again on the question of Eric, I think if you are curating a data set, I mean, anybody which is in some way or another responsible of a data set, even amateurs which are creating a data set, these are projects potentially. I think this, I mean, there's no doubt, I mean, it doesn't need to be an academic project, doesn't need to be a funded academic project. Of course, and many of the projects are like this, but if someone has made a collection, digitized the collections and want to participate, this is a very clear way of doing it. It's just a matter of describing.
Yeah. So in the sense, back to my question about defining what a project is, we have a low threshold there. So
yeah, I mean, we have of course to adjust. I mean, we'll see, but usually, I mean, my rule of thumb would be that people who are caring about something and made a database or something, I mean, this is taking a lot of their time. So it's a low threshold from a certain point of view, but it's actually very valuable in terms of resources. And if we can connect these and use them later on, I mean, that's super beneficial.
Yeah, because they will also allow us, and that's what Ilaria is going to help us with, to map what's out there and to make connections, and it will help all to find each other and to relate. I already noted for on the address books yesterday we have a connection already, a new connection. So I think that's very nice that we can establish. We can really now see the synergy start to emerge. That's wonderful.
So don't be shy. Upload and we will create typologies afterwards. Yeah.
Exactly. And if you have a question about whether you should upload your data or not, please contact Isabella or Carolina or any of us, and we'll be in touch. Yes, I see the Rome team is back. Welcome back. There was a concrete question from Claudia Resch to Martin Raspe about you say you use a model for relationships and events, and the question was what model is used and whether you can recommend any.
Hello. Yeah. Sorry. This is a model which we designed already in 2003 when the first SciDoc CRM development was already underway, and we practically modeled it in parallel. It's much simpler than SciDoc, but it's not like, you know, that sophisticated. It's more designed on practicality than on the ideal standards that the SciDoc has. So I wouldn't say it's recommendable for everybody, but I would say get in contact and we'll share what we have.
That's very nice, and please don't apologize. That's how we all start, with strings and rope, and that's how beautiful things get realized. So I think this whole standardization, of course, we try to achieve it, and it helps us in connecting things. But I think it's great to see the work that is being done. So great. So
you can also propose some RFCs if you want. So there could be, for example, RFC only on CDOC CRM standards concerning, for example, in this case, images or others, but it could be also 3D or other types of data, of course.
Yes, so it's very important if anyone feels they have some time to spare, even if it's just a little bit, to help us be on the editorial committee for the RFCs. This would be really great, because of course we need somebody that decides on which RFCs will get written. But I think it's a super useful instrument to streamline these kind of debates, and because it forces you to clarify and document what you're actually doing and using, and the issues with that can be pointed out by the community in the review process. So I think it's a really great instrument to help us get ahead. So if you have any time, please, think along. And if you don't, then still propose subjects for the yes. Tristan, you want to make a point?
Sorry, because I don't have a blue hand. So you're suggesting to partners who think they have a solution to a specific time machine TMO problem to write a RFC. Is that correct?
Yeah, I see that Frederick also would have something, maybe because RFCs is your topic, Frederick, if you want to answer directly.
Yeah, so it's not that you write the RFC directly. So RFC is a much slower process than the local time machine, where people should exactly describe what they do. But in the RFC, we have an RFC tree with a series of problems on which we try to find solutions. And what you can do is join the RFC teams as reviewers, editors, or writers, so that in order to collectively converge on some solutions. So typically the data graph, I mean, the question of how to represent, I mean, the type of ontology we've been discussing for images, but also for social phenomena for place. This is one of the big RFC where there is already about 10 persons which are ready to work on this. So it's joining, I mean, the convergent process. But in the meantime, documenting it as a local time machine project, because this is how the RFC will be built, looking at what has worked and not worked concretely on the local time machine project.
Yes, okay, thank you very much. Also highlighting the question from Slava, whether non-EU partners can join. I think it was discussed yesterday. I think it's good to emphasize again, we are not restricted. We have our origins in Europe, and because of the European funding we received, we have an orientation. We had an initial orientation towards Europe, but from the start, partners abroad in other parts of the world have been connected. So there's absolutely no boundary there. So in fact, it would be great to have local time machines connect from other parts of the world as well, or partners from other parts of the world.
Even for the projects, if you want to upload some projects that is ongoing or past project in US, for example, or in Asia, it's a good moment to do it. There's the interface. It's really simple. Just pick the correct place that you need, and it's done.
Okay, I think if there are no pressing additional questions, we go to the final part, because we have 15 minutes left. So I'd like to move on to our decision on what's going to be on our calendar for the next period. So Isabella, you first want to introduce the themes that we thought of as possible themes for upcoming sessions of the local time machine academies. And after that, you will have the opportunity to give your list of preferences and add your own ideas. So this is the interactive part. But Isabella, first, the floor is yours. I see a white screen at the moment.
Yeah, just 1 second. I'm sorry. I tried to relaunch the screen at the same time. Up.
Yeah.
Okay, here we are. Yeah, so we suggest this 6 themes for starting, because we think that it's they are naturally raised up from our discussion with all of you and different about different aspects. So the idea is to have, so in the Time Machine Academies you have 1 hour, 1 hour and a half of discussion in a small group, not really big, in the sense that it could be interesting to have a template in which we guess to have 3, for example, presentations about what's happening on a specific coding solution or a specific tools or a specific software and so on. And there the discussion with all of the intervenes in which you can, for example, animate and share ideas and then define standards and so on. This is exactly the case that Tristan mentioned before, in the sense that you can have the slow process through the RFCs for discuss in a very structured way and for write a sort of common chart for each of themes, topics that the Time Machine believes to be important. And then there's the other channel through the Time Machine Academies, in which, for example, the same problem about the CDOC, CRM standards and definition of data modeling, you can rediscuss in a more in a more easy way with other people interested in a Time Machine Academy. Concerning the themes, so there's a big challenge about codes, in the sense that, for example, I take my personal example from the DH lab, the Digital Humanities lab at the EPFL. The colleagues develop very interesting tools for segmentation, for image segmentation, and for very useful for historical documents. For example, this presentation of tools of segmentation of historical documents could be a subject of this first Time Machine Academies about this type of codes. There's a lot of software solution. We see something in this sense just yesterday, not only developed by academic research, but also by private actors or companies or so on. This is the good moments to be on Cathedra and try to explain, potentially to have a debate about it. There's a big challenge concerning infrastructure, storage, and computing, not only for university, but of course for patrimonial institutions, for example, that they don't know exactly how they can improve their storage, how to do a long time storage of the digitalized items. So this could be another interesting subject for an academy. How we can improve the digitization methods in terms of technology in acquisition, but also technology in the pipeline. So if we have to do an inventory of all the items that we want to digitize before, or is there probably methods to do this inventory after the digitization for gain more times? These are the questions. And then, of course, the funding opportunities, because we talk a lot about past projects or ongoing project to upload in the platform, but there's a new, completely new field about what you can do for the future in terms of project, of course. So what are the current opportunities for funding? And then the community service. This is another element interesting in the sense that potentially there's someone And this is specifically for example, public actors. There's some institution that has a concrete problem to solve, and the community, so all the time machines actors are at that moment federate for answer potentially to this unsolved problem. Sort of Mr. Wolf of Time Machine Mr. Wolf. Okay, so Julia, I give you the flow for the poll. What do you think? Is it okay?
Yes, I am sharing my screen now. Going to the poll. Wait. Sorry. So you see now a screen. If you go to the website menti.com on your device, can be your computer or your mobile phone. If you go to menti.com, you are asked to enter a code. If you then enter this code 7807293, then you will be able to give us your preferred order of these themes. And after this, I will ask you for input for your own themes. So we want to start with polling you on the, yeah, thank you for pasting the code and the link. So you can hear, oh yeah, the first rankings start to appear. That's really good. So I'll give it some time because obviously many of you are still doing this. So it appears there's a lot of interest in sharing code and tools. I will do it myself as well. I'm also representing a time machine here. Okay, let me see. Yes, funding opportunities, very important, of course. So with 45 people responding, we are more or less balancing out. This is really helpful because you can sit down and think of all these themes that of course also emerge out of your work. Doesn't come from our minds only, but it is really good to see what you consider most important. I leave it going for a little bit. Checking in the meantime. Yes, okay. I think we more or less have a picture, right? With 56 people, we are still many more. Do I need to give you a little bit more time? In the meantime, Ruth Estrada of Schumann is indicating that funding opportunities coming up soon. I also wholeheartedly recommend this afternoon session between 2 and 4 of the project scouting team, because they work very hard together with Schumann to map the landscape, to be involved in funding agenda setting, to research and map all the opportunities. So please also consider attending that session. But of course, we'll keep you updated. I think we have a very good idea. So clearly people want to share code and tooling. That's really nice. So really hands-on, try out other people's code, know what's available. Yeah, oh, it's still moving about. But funding opportunities and existing software solutions are also highly recommended. Maybe the community service is something that comes after, once we've tested the tooling, etc. All right, thank you very much. Because of time, I suggest we move on to the open question part. And if you haven't been able to contribute your answers yet and would like to, please, you can still also email us your list of preference, obviously. Okay, so we go to the next question. So now you are able to add in a free text field the topics you think we should also schedule for these local time machine academies. So that means topics that have not, or themes or questions that have not been addressed by us so far. And one thing for one question, for instance, that I myself have from Amsterdam is how to implement and organize shared data sets for a local time machine. So we have created a lot of geodata for Amsterdam, location data. So how do you sustainably implement and maintain that data set? That's one question I have, for instance.
Yeah, maybe some particular needs in the case, for example, specific on AI, machine learning for processing content for time machines. We can try to see if this can be realigned in the, for example, coding or coding part. Digital archiving. So it's a big topic in the sense that maybe it could be useful to define more what parts of digital archiving we want to consider for the time machine academies, if it's about digitization itself, or it's about metadata description of items, or it's about, so we have to segment it a little bit the questions, but very, very interesting arguments pop up. Agreement on shared APIs, IIIF. Okay. How to make sure our passing growing project about the city are mapped. We cannot make sure at all. We just hope that in a way or another, all the projects concerns a place could be uploaded in the platform. But okay, so I see that there's a lot of interesting points.
Yeah, I think, for instance, also a topic such as AI, machine learning for processing content, that could be a specific theme for such a sharing tooling or code session, right? We could focus on a specific technology there, because I think, yeah, that is good to keep it focused, but we cannot take all of this input and see how to organize. And the Open Science Cloud is a good question, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of input here from you. Thank you so much. a citizen science platform for transcription. That's also a good question. How do you organize that in a way that you reach the community and that everyone can make sense of it? There are examples of such platforms. Some are licensed, some are open. How do we work with that? How do you integrate that? Yeah.
No, it's wonderful. So in any case, we take all these suggestions. We try to define our calendar based on your suggestions, at the same time as other more general topics that we provide. The point is that so potentially there are some academies that are more organized by the Time Machine team, but others could be open to you. So we are open to have your organization, to have the possibility that you, before in a general level and then potentially in a more local level, you can organize yourself the Time Machine Academies. I'm sorry. In any case, we don't have yet the calendar for the next Time Machine Academy, but we try to rapidly to define it. We would like to start from January. This is the idea, and then potentially to have one meeting for months.
Yeah. So since it's also just past 12 o'clock, I think we'll take this back with us. Thank you so much for your input. It's really valuable. And I really thank you for your participation, also to the presenters for their interesting work. And all of you, I really look forward to collaborate with you all in these upcoming sessions where hopefully we have more room to really talk to each other and share and work while we are still confined to this digital realm. And in a more long term, we of course hope to also organize physical gatherings again to really get our hands dirty, so to say. Okay. Thank you, Isabella, for presenting, for
Many thanks, Julia. Many thanks, Caroline, Daniel, for all these wonderful books. Many thanks to Yazen, Georgie, and Martin and Thomas for the presentations. And so please, you are free to contact us, and please do it. And so we will see you very, very soon. Thank you.
Thank you all. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.